One day, probably, I guess 4 years ago, a restaurant in the neighborhood, he mentioned that he was looking to start a garden, just of any size, anywhere in the neighborhood. Lewis went, well, you can farm our backyard, which was like a disaster trash heap at that point. And the guy went, really? I'm Jeremy Sapienza.
And I'm Luis Velasquez.
And this is our backyard on Central Avenue in Bushwick. And so 2 weeks later, they were here with wood and dirt. We had to have a bucket brigade of dirt through the house because there's no other way to get back here. It's just a lot of trash underneath. I mean, if you constantly have to get down in the dirt, you would get poked with needles or cut by glass or whatever. So it's just a tarp, the dirt on top. Well, the first year they planted some stuff, and then eventually they abandoned it. I asked them if we could just take it over. And so they just gave it to us. So we really had no idea at all what we were doing. I've never farmed at all, he hasn't. But we weren't gonna let it go to waste.
We always meant for this to be a garden.
That was the origin of us having this thing in the yard.
If cost is something that you have to watch, which we certainly did with a space like this, you have to go grow stuff from seeds oftentimes because it's the cheapest and it's the easiest to get sort of wide variety of things here. The other thing that's a surprise is water. Water is expensive, it turns out, in the city. If you're a homeowner like we are, you pay attention to it, or when you're watering things, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, wow. But, if it's a dry year, you notice the cost of water a lot. If you're a tenant, you know, grow to your heart's content. You know, here, from like every day we go down to the garden and we see something different, you know. And it was really, it's shocking and it's fun. And it's sort of a surprise every day to come back here and see what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes, even when things don't work, it's sort of, I think it's exciting. Gives you, okay, well, what else can we try that, you know, we haven't tried before? It's all a bit of a mystery to us. It's hard for us to believe that this actually becomes anything edible, but we're willing to stick it out. See what happens.
It's just too easy. I mean, there's like tons of beans all over. They need to be picked like right now because they're already gonna be too big.
This is the real deal. And I actually think it makes a neighborhood a nicer place to live when you can look through everyone's backyard. Like our next door neighbor grows a lot of stuff, and we just discovered that that is a cherry tree. We never noticed that. And the other thing that we've noticed, and you can probably hear, is the birds. When we came here, there were no birds.
There were no birds, there were no squirrels. There was nothing but trash and brown and gray.
Yeah.
They like to eat our stuff too, though.
Yeah, they do. Luckily, there's plenty to go around.
Yeah.
This is how we decide whether something is good to eat or not. We just eat it and see.
My advice would be to just start small. Start with what you have and don't overwhelm yourself, and just plant simple things and then expand from there. Oh yeah, also plant things you like. Seems important.